Have you ever just looked around at our wild, chaotic world and wondered, what in the world holds all of this together? Well, one of the very first people to try and answer that scientifically was a French sociologist named Emile Durkheim. And he didn't see himself as just a thinker. He saw himself as a kind of social doctor, someone who could diagnose the health with society itself.
See, Durkheim was basically obsessed with this one single question for his entire career. What is the glue? What actually holds us all together and stops us from just spinning off into total chaos? And for him, this wasn't just some academic puzzle. It was a really urgent problem. You have to remember the world he was living in. This was 19th century France, a place that was just reeling from massive, massive change. The old world, the one held together by tradition, the king, a single religion, had been completely shattered by the French Revolution. At the same time, the Industrial Revolution was pulling people out of their small, tight-knit villages and throwing them into these huge, anonymous cities. Individualism was on the rise, and Durkheim was asking the most important question of all: what's stopping society from just completely falling apart? And this is where our social doctor steps onto the scene. Durkheim had this powerful idea that society wasn't just a random bunch of people. No, he argued it was a living, breathing thing all on its own, with its own rules, its own currents, and its own health. And just like any living organism, it could get sick. His whole mission was to create a true science of society, sociology, so we could diagnose and maybe, just maybe, even treat these social illnesses. And boy, was this guy productive. I mean, look at this timeline. In just a few years there in the 1890s, he had this incredible creative burst, publishing a series of works that literally built the foundation for sociology as a real, serious, academic field. He wasn't just writing books. He was forging an entirely new way of seeing the world around us. And this quote right here, this gets to the absolute heart of his mission. When Durkheim says we have to consider social facts as things, he was making a totally radical claim for his time. He meant that we have to study society objectively, with data and evidence, just like a biologist studies a cell or a physicist studies gravity, and not just based on philosophical ideas or personal opinions. Okay, so if you're going to study society as a thing, you need to be able to see its parts, right? For Durkheim, these fundamental parts were something he called social facts. So what is a social fact? Well, think of them as these powerful, invisible currents that exist outside of any single one of us. They were here long before we were born, and they'll be here long after we're gone. And here's the crucial part. They have what he called a coercive power. They push and pull on us, shaping our behavior, guiding our choices, whether we even realize it or not. Let's make this real. Think about language. You didn't invent the language you're hearing right now, right? But to communicate, you have to follow its rules, its grammar, its vocabulary. If you don't, people won't understand you. That is a social fact in action. It's external to you, and it constrains you. The same thing goes for laws, for social customs, even for something as deeply personal as the suicide rate in a country. And this was the really radical idea. It meant you could actually observe, count, and analyze these social facts using things like statistics. For the very first time, this meant the patterns of human society could be studied with the same kind of scientific rigor that had unlocked the secrets of the natural world. It was a total game changer. All right, so if these social facts are the invisible forces shaping us, how do they actually hold society together? How do they work as that social glue? Well, Durkheim said there are two different kinds of glue, or what he called solidarity, that have evolved over time. So first, you've got mechanical solidarity. You can think of this as the old-school glue of traditional societies. Here, everyone is held together because they're basically the same. They share the same beliefs, the same work, the same way of life. But then there's organic solidarity. This is the glue of our modern world. And the crazy thing is, it holds us together because of our differences. We're all specialists. We're doctors, farmers, coders, teachers. And it's the fact that we all depend on each other that creates this powerful, complex bond. But what happens when that social glue, whether it's the old kind or the new kind, starts to weaken? To diagnose this problem, Durkheim turned to a really surprising source: suicide statistics. Now, he wasn't interested in the tragic, personal reasons why any single individual might end their life. He wanted to understand why the rate of suicide was such a stable, predictable social fact, a rate that went up or down depending on what was happening in society. And in his research, he discovered that modern society
was especially vulnerable to a particular illness he named anomy. Anomy is the state of normlessness, of drift. It's what happens when the old rules break down, but new ones haven't shown up yet. Think about the confusion that can come with a sudden economic crash, or even with winning the lottery. In those moments, our desires can become limitless, and we can lose our sense of purpose, feeling completely adrift in the world. By crunching the numbers from all across Europe, Durkheim created this incredibly powerful framework. He showed that suicide rates weren't random at all. They were directly linked to two key social forces: integration, how connected we feel to a group, and regulation, how much our lives are guided by norms. It's a balance. Too little integration and you get egoistic suicide from loneliness, but too much and you get altruistic suicide where someone dies for the group. Too little regulation leads to that anomic suicide of despair, while too much leads to fatalistic suicide from feeling totally oppressed. So, let's bring it all home. Why are we still talking about a guy from the 19th century today? What is the big takeaway from all of Emile Durkheim's work? I think his most powerful legacy is this. He proved that society is real. It's not just an idea. It's what he called sui generis, a reality of its own, more than just the sum of all the individuals in it. It's a structure with its own powerful forces that shape our lives, our choices, and yes, even our most private sorrows. He basically gave us the glasses to see the invisible social organism that we're all a part of.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The next time you're scrolling through your social media feed or picking an outfit or planning your career path, just ask yourself, how much of that choice is truly my own? And how much is it being guided by those invisible social facts that Durkheim uncovered more than a century ago? Because once you start looking for them, well, you'll start seeing them absolutely everywhere.